Imagine sitting at home, relaxing and watching another episode of your favorite TV show. Birds are chirping, cars are driving past your window, each filled with an innocent bystander, on their way home from a hard day's work, looking forward to a nice hot dinner. Suddenly, you hear a siren, and you receive a notification from your phone. In bold letters, this message would read, "Emergency alert. Ballistic missile threat inbound. Seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill." You'd at first be confused and dazed, but once people begin running down the street, hastily jumping into their vehicles, you'd realize that this was no joke. World War III had begun, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. There are reported to be nearly 4,000 nuclear warheads in the world, and your home country begins firing every nuclear missile they have at the enemy, and the enemy would begin to fire every missile they have at your country. Allies would then join in, meaning all across the globe, enough missiles to destroy our planet are fired to assure no one would be the victor. This is called mutually assured destruction. The idea being, if the enemy decided to nuke us, they might as well be nuking themselves. The few that are able to find remote shelters, stocked with enough food to last them several years, will survive the initial blast and will hopefully rebuild society in the future. In this world, a wandering giant roams the earth, a titan we know as Godzilla. This creature has inhabited this planet for millions of years and has seen countless globally destructive events. But little did he know he is about to witness the greatest extinction event ever seen on the face of the Earth for over 65 million years. Unaware of what's about to hit, Godzilla takes a stroll across the countryside, crushing the trees as he walks. But suddenly, there's a blinding flash of light, which makes Godzilla cover his eyes. Following is a blast of warm air, which would normally have incinerated any humans below. Met with winds that could rival a hurricane, an atomic bomb has gone off in the nearest city, which has completely annihilated the surrounding area, leaving a gigantic fireball in its wake, which even to Godzilla would block out the sun. The bomb used would be many times larger than what was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, but there wouldn't be just one. In the distance, another bomb can be seen dropping on the nearest major city. And another one. And another one. All across the world, people would be experiencing the horrors of nuclear devastation, which would collapse the fundamental building blocks of ordered society. The apocalypse had truly begun. But how will this affect the king of the monsters? Well, the initial blast would at most make Godzilla feel uncomfortable, but thanks to his thick skin, he's much more resistant to the harsh elements, like the intense heat of the atomic bomb. The bomb might even supply Godzilla with a small boost of energy due to radiation being his primary method of feeding. Instead of eating like mammals, reptiles, birds, and all other life forms on Earth, Godzilla processes radiation in a similar fashion to how plants photosynthesize, but in place of absorbing the light from the sun, he absorbs radiation. This allows him to grow, regenerate, keep active, and use his special abilities such as his atomic breath. You might even see the ridges in Godzilla's skin glow blue as they radiate with energy, indicating he's full of radiation. The initial stages of World War III would be over quicker than the moments leading up to it. The bombs would go off, asphalt, concrete, cars and houses would have been thrown thousands of feet from their position. The electrical lines and power grids would go down, plunging the world into darkness, and any mobile technology would die following the EMP that is emitted from the radiation. The world would go from nothing but screams to silence as the blast begins to fade, and Godzilla would be left with nothing but scorched ground. No sound, not even the sounds of birds chirping. Ash and nuclear fallout would begin to fall in its masses, making the ground sour and spreading the radiation to even more places. It would seem like it's snowing, and Godzilla, confused, would head into the area of the blast to witness the aftermath. What were once skyscrapers that towered over him now lie in rubble on the ground. For the first time in 100 years, Godzilla was the tallest thing there. There would be no humans, no cars, and any remaining survivors would be lying dormant in the fallout shelters far away from any cities. Godzilla has a natural Geiger counter that informs him on whether there's a spike of radiation, and in the spot he's standing, it's going off like a wildfire. The initial blast radius will be significantly more radioactive than the surrounding region, and because of this, Godzilla begins to take in an astronomical amount of energy. In short bursts, this is good for him, but too much can cause him to overload and go into a thermonuclear meltdown, which would lead to an explosion so massive it would plunge the world into a nuclear winter. This is when the firestorm caused by the blast would cause the soot to enter the Earth's atmosphere, blocking out the heat from the sunlight, plunging the world into a prolonged winter, which really wouldn't help the remaining human situation. The radiation in the surrounding area will stain the ground for 3,000 to 20,000 years, probably more. The longer Godzilla stays in the radioactive hotspots, the more he poses a threat to anything still alive across the world, and potentially to himself. It's not known whether Godzilla himself can even survive the thermonuclear explosion he'd emit, whether he'd melt down like a nuclear reactor. The amount of radiation that will burst from him will make Chernobyl look like a helium balloon popping. Godzilla, full of sustenance, would disperse to rest in a remote underwater location to cool down. But now even the ocean is tainted from the radiation that came from the thousands of nuclear bombs that have since exploded. This will likely result in a large amount of fish dying from radiation sickness. As nuclear fallout falls from the sky and the Earth continues to rot, remaining wildlife would be left with a lack of food. The vegetation will be radioactive, meaning if it's consumed, it would only make the animals sick. Same goes for the meat. In Chernobyl, they set out soldiers with rifles to take down any of the pets that had been contaminated by the radiation. Dogs, cats, rabbits would be piled up and buried under concrete, but with no humans to contain the wildlife, it would only spread to even more remote areas. Some Titans may have survived, though their powers aren't nearly as great as Godzilla's. All Titans absorb radiation to feed, and the levels they require differ to the king of the monsters. More frail titans like the Mutos, Kumunga, Kamacuras or Scylla may very well have perished in the blast due to the sheer force of the explosion, but titans like Mothra, Rodan, Anguirus, Megalon or Methuselah could fly away or bury themselves deep underground to either simply avoid the blasts or to hibernate for several thousand years, feasting on the radiation without using up any of their energy. In the aftermath of the war, it seems that the atomic annihilation of the planet has almost terraformed it to resemble the world that these creatures were adapted to live in, an era where the world was many times more radioactive than it was throughout the 20th century. The monsters that were strong enough to survive the force of the blast will find themselves almost comfortable with the world left behind. No humans, no technology, no planes, no cars, no noise, apart from the sound of other titans. They will freely walk the earth and make their homes in the areas plentiful with radiation. And because of the Titan radiation they emit, prehistoric plant life will begin to flourish in the now destroyed cities, thriving amongst the giants. When the humans exit their shelters to witness the new world, they'll be extremely surprised to see a blend between almost alien-like plant life that towers over the fallen skyscrapers and ash, residue from the world that once was. No one can truly say whether humans will survive the nuclear apocalypse, or whether the survivors will manage to learn to live with the Titans and avoid deadly radioactive zones. But one thing's for certain, Godzilla wouldn't just survive the nuclear apocalypse, he'd thrive in it, along with the many other Titans that bow to him. Meaning yes, Godzilla will survive a nuclear apocalypse. To conclude, let's go over the events in order as they happen. The bombs go off and anyone not underground would perish, either instantly or over time due to radiation poisoning. Some monsters would die due to the force of the explosions, but the ones who survive will find themselves in a new world where they can thrive. Godzilla would absorb plenty of radiation and will leave to rest in the ocean so that he doesn't go thermonuclear, threatening all life on the planet as well as himself. Titan radiation would cause prehistoric plant life to regrow, turning the landscape into an almost alien-like planet. Humans that eventually leave their shelters will be met with a completely new world. If you guys enjoyed our video, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button so you don't miss out on our next video. Don't forget to like this video if you'd like to see more. What would you like to see explored next? Perhaps would Godzilla survive a zombie apocalypse? Or would Godzilla survive the Halo universe? Let us know in the comment section down below. I've been your host Alistair, and thank you for watching.